I didn't expect to still be in my hometown at 26, working at a local IT desk job and living in a rented duplex with peeling paint and a neighbor who mows his lawn at 6 in the morning. But life rarely turns out the way you planned it, especially when your big city dreams get crushed by layoffs, heartbreak, and a global pandemic that wrecked everything for a while. Still, I had my routines: gym after work, microwave dinners, video games with my headset on, pretending I didn't feel like something was missing. It wasn't a terrible life, just a quiet one. Then Drew moved in. I hadn't seen him since college. We'd been best friends back then, thick as thieves. Same major, same warped sense of humor, and too many late nights playing FIFA and arguing over which Marvel movie was the most overrated. He was the first guy the first ever had a real crush on, though I never told him that. Never dared to. He was straight, had a girlfriend, and besides, I didn't want to lose the only person who'd ever made me feel like I didn't have to hide who I was. After graduation, he got a job in Chicago. I stayed back, worked retail until the tech company downtown finally gave me a shot. We texted less and less. I figured that was the end of it, just another friend who fades into memory. But then 3 weeks ago, I got a message. Out of the blue. Drew, hey, random, but I might need a place to crash for a bit. Is your spare room still a thing? I stared at my screen for a full minute before typing back. Me, yeah. What's going on? He didn't answer right away. A full hour passed before another text came through. Drew, long story. I'll explain when I get there. 2 days later, he showed up on my doorstep with nothing but a duffel bag and a tired smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He looked different, older, still handsome in that casually scruffy way that always made people gravitate toward him. Brown hair longer than it used to be, beard coming in, black hoodie clinging to his frame. But there was something else in his posture, like he was carrying a weight he didn't know how to put down. Hey man, he said, stepping inside and pulling me into a one-armed hug like no time had passed. Thanks again for this, seriously. No problem, I said, trying not to inhale too deeply. He smelled like pine soap and cold air. It messed with my head. The first few days were easy. We fell back into old rhythms. Takeout, Netflix, dumb YouTube spirals at midnight. It was almost like we were in college again. Only this time we were older, lonelier, and a little more worn down by life. He didn't say much about why he left Chicago. Just that he needed space. I didn't push. But I started noticing things. Like how he barely looked at his phone. How his smiles always seemed delayed. Like they were being summoned from somewhere deep inside. How sometimes I'd catch him just staring into space like he was stuck in a memory he couldn't escape from. One night, after a couple beers and a half-hearted attempt at playing old-school Mario Kart, I asked him straight up, "You good?" He didn't answer right away, just leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun lazily overhead. "I walked in on my fiancé with someone else," he said finally. 2 months before the wedding, they were in our bed. "Oh," I said. It was all I could manage. He looked over at me, and for the first time since he arrived, he looked completely raw. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I just reached over and rested my hand on his knee, a gesture that probably meant nothing to him, but everything to me. He didn't move it away. That night changed something. It wasn't dramatic. There was no sudden confession, no drunken kiss, but the energy between us shifted, subtle and slow, like a storm gathering on the horizon. He started lingering longer in the mornings, sitting a little closer on the couch, asking questions that felt loaded. Did you ever think about leaving this place? Do you ever wish things had gone differently? Back in college. Did you ever? He never finished that last one. Just let the words hang there, trailing off like a thread he was too afraid to pull. And then there was the night I found him asleep on the couch, shirtless, blanket tangled around his legs, chest rising and falling in soft, steady rhythm. I stood there for too long, just watching him. Something about the way his face looked in sleep, unguarded, peaceful, made my throat ache. I should have walked away, but I didn't. I knelt beside him, just to adjust the blanket. At least that's what I told myself. But then his hand twitched, and his eyes fluttered open, landing right on mine. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he whispered, voice hoarse from sleep, Why'd you stop texting me back then? I blinked. What? You stopped texting. After I left, I noticed. I swallowed. I figured you didn't need me anymore. His eyes searched mine in the dim light. I needed you more than I realized. And then, in the quiet, he reached out and touched my face. Just for a second. But it was enough. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, still feeling the ghost of Drew's fingers on my cheek. It hadn't been romantic exactly. Not overtly, but it hadn't been nothing either. The way he looked at me in that moment, like he was trying to say something without using words, it haunted me. By morning, I'd convinced myself I imagined it. But when I walked into the kitchen, Drew was already there, making coffee like nothing had happened. Same hoodie, same messy hair, same casual smile. Except when he handed me my mug, his fingers brushed mine, and this time, he didn't pull away right away. We didn't talk about it. Not that morning, not that night, not the next day either. But the tension between us had a heartbeat now, a pulse. It was in the way we stood a little too close in the kitchen, the way we lingered in each other's doorways, the way I'd catch him looking at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. That weekend we went grocery shopping together, something that should have felt mundane, normal. But when we got back and I realized we'd bought the exact same snacks we used to binge in college, I felt something tug at my chest. We were recreating something. Maybe on purpose, maybe by accident. But whatever it was pulling us closer. And then came Sunday night. I'd been curled up on the couch reading while Drew was in the shower. When he came out, hair damp, towel around his neck, wearing nothing but gym shorts and a loose tank top. I looked up and forgot what I was reading. "Hey," he said, toweling off his hair. "You ever wonder why we never talked about it?" I frowned, lowering my book. "Talked about what?" He sat down on the other end of the couch, not looking at me. "Us. College, that last year, all the late nights, all the times we almost said something." I didn't answer, mostly because I didn't trust my voice. Drew glanced over, his expression unreadable. I wasn't blind, you know. My throat tightened. Blind to what? You know what? I set the book aside. You were with Rachel. You were straight. There wasn't anything to talk about. "I don't know if I was," he said quietly. That stopped me cold. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, eyes on the floor. "I mean, I thought I was. I tried to be. But there were nights I'd lie awake thinking about stuff. About you. About how easy it was to be around you and how much I missed it when we stopped talking." I swallowed hard. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because," he said, finally looking at me, "I can't stop thinking about the other night. When you touched my knee. When I touched your face. I felt something. I've never felt that with anyone." The room went still. I could hear my own heartbeat. Drew reached over, fingers brushing against my wrist. He didn't grab it, didn't force anything, just rested his hand there, light, careful, testing. "I don't know what this means," he said. "I don't even know what I'm doing, but I know I don't want to pretend anymore." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I leaned forward, and for a second, we just sat there, inches apart, breathing the same air. And then I kissed him. It wasn't dramatic or movie-worthy. It was awkward, hesitant. His lips were warm, and mine were slightly chapped, and we both missed each other's rhythm at first. But the second time, it settled into something softer, truer, like exhaling after holding your breath for years. When we finally pulled apart, he looked dazed. "So, that's what that feels like," he murmured. "Yeah," I said, heart racing. "That's what that feels like." He let out a quiet laugh, running a hand through his damp hair. "You have no idea how long I've wanted to know." I smiled. "I think I do." And just like that, everything changed again. But not in the way I expected. Because what followed wasn't some whirlwind romance. It was confusion. Hesitation. A lot of silence. The next morning, Drew was distant again. He made breakfast without saying much. Didn't sit on the couch with me. Didn't look me in the eye. I tried not to take it personally. He was processing. But when I heard him on the phone later, talking to his mom, saying he was still figuring things out, I felt a lump rise in my throat. Because I realized something. I wanted more than figuring it out. I wanted him to choose me. The weirdest part wasn't the kiss. It was everything that came after. I kept waiting for Drew to bring it up, to talk about it, laugh about it, hell, even deny it happened. But he didn't. He just kinda pretended like we were the same as before, like nothing had shifted. And maybe that was the worst part, the pretending. For the first few days, I gave him space. I figured he needed time to process. His whole life had just flipped. Cheating fiancé, moving states, now kissing his old best friend on a couch. That's a lot for anyone, but the silence started to hurt. It was in the way he'd sit across the room instead of next to me, the way he'd avoid eye contact during dinner, the way our casual touches, shoulders brushing, handing each other the remote, just stopped. By Wednesday, I couldn't take it anymore. We were in the kitchen. He was stirring something on the stove, and I was half-heartedly chopping vegetables I didn't even want to eat. The tension had gotten thick, like the air before a thunderstorm. Are we just not going to talk about it? I asked, my voice low. Drew didn't look at me. About what? You know what? He paused, spoon in hand, then set it down a little too forcefully. I don't know what to say. How about the truth? That got him. He turned, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. Okay. The truth? I liked it. I liked kissing you, but it scared the shit out of me. I nodded slowly. Why? Because I don't know what that means. I've never felt this way about a guy before. I don't even know if I'm gay, or bi, or just broken. I stepped closer. You're not broken, Drew. He shook his head, frustrated. You make it look so easy. I blinked. Easy? Yeah. Like, you're just okay being who you are. You always were. I laughed, not unkindly. Dude, do you have any idea how long it took me to get there? How many nights I spent hating myself? I only look confident now because I've been through the war already. Drew was quiet. I exhaled. I'm not asking you to label yourself. I'm not even asking for anything, really. But I need to know if that kiss meant something to you. Or if I'm just imagining all of this. He looked at me, and for the first time in days, I saw something real in his expression. Vulnerability, fear, longing. It meant everything, he said softly. I felt my chest tighten. Then why are you acting like it didn't happen? Because if I let myself feel it, really feel it, then I have to admit that maybe my whole life, everything I thought I wanted, was a lie. I stepped closer, so close our knees almost touched. Maybe it wasn't a lie. Maybe it just wasn't the whole story. Drew's eyes met mine, and this time he didn't look away. He reached out slowly, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed, and rested his hand on my waist. Just lightly. Just enough to say I'm still here. I don't want to lose you again, he said. You won't, I whispered. But I need honesty. No more pretending. He nodded. No more pretending. We didn't kiss again that night. We just sat on the couch, side by side, his hand resting on mine as we watched TV without really watching it. And for the first time since he moved in, the silence between us felt like comfort, not distance. But the next morning, things got complicated again. I came out of the shower to find Drew pacing in the living room, phone in hand, tension etched into every line of his body. What's going on? I asked. He looked up, startled. My ex, Rachel, she wants to talk. I felt my stomach drop. Oh, she says she's driving down this weekend to get closure. I swallowed. And do you want that? He hesitated. I don't know. Part of me does. Part of me thinks it's a terrible idea. I nodded slowly. Well, it's your call. He stared at me for a second, then said, Would you be here? When she comes? The question surprised me. Yeah, I said quietly. Of course. Drew looked relieved, but something in his posture told me this wasn't over. That storm I'd felt brewing between us, it wasn't done. And sure enough, 2 days later, when Rachel showed up on our doorstep, everything changed again. She was prettier than I remembered. I'd only seen Rachel in pictures before, Instagram posts, the occasional Facebook tag back when Drew still used social media like a normal person. But standing in my doorway in a beige coat and oversized sunglasses, she looked like she'd stepped out of a lifestyle blog. Blonde, polished, confident, the kind of woman who made people stand up straighter without realizing it. "Hi," she said, offering me a tight smile. "You must be Eli," I replied, opening the door a little wider. "Come on in." Drew had been in the shower when she arrived. Perfect timing. I led her to the couch and awkwardly offered her water, coffee, anything that would buy us a few seconds of not talking. She declined everything with a graceful shake of her head. Silence stretched between us. She studied the apartment, our messy pile of shoes near the door, the half-finished jigsaw puzzle on the dining table, the blanket still bunched up from last night's movie. "Looks like you've made yourself comfortable," she said, not unkindly. I wasn't sure what to say to that. Before I could figure it out, Drew appeared, hair damp, pulling a hoodie over his head as he stepped into the room. The moment he saw her, he froze. "Hey," he said, voice quiet. Rachel stood. "Hey." For a second, it felt like I wasn't supposed to be there, like I was watching a scene from someone else's life. I turned to leave, but Drew grabbed my wrist gently. "Stay." I looked at Rachel. She didn't object. She just sat back down and crossed her legs, like this was any other afternoon. They started talking. It was awkward at first. Hesitant. Drew apologized, sincerely, painfully, for ghosting her, instead of explaining why he left. She apologized for what he'd walked in on. They circled around things delicately, like dancers avoiding broken glass. Then Rachel said something that caught me off guard. "I'm not here to get back together," she said. "I just needed to see for myself that you were okay." Drew nodded slowly. "I am. Or getting there." She glanced over at me, and her gaze lingered a little longer than I liked. "You're in good hands, it seems." I forced a polite smile. There was something else in her eyes. Not jealousy exactly. Something sadder. Like she was realizing she'd never really known him at all. "You're not the same," she said softly. Drew looked down at his hands. "I'm not." She nodded. "That's probably a good thing." After a while, they moved to the balcony to talk alone. I stayed inside, heart pounding, replaying everything that had been said. I couldn't hear what they were saying out there, just the occasional murmur and a low laugh that made my stomach twist was something I didn't want to name. When they finally came back in, it was different, lighter. "I should go," Rachel said, grabbing her purse. "Thank you for letting me drop by. Really." I nodded, unsure what to say. She turned to Drew and hugged him, longer than I liked, but not romantic. More like a goodbye, a real one this time. After she left, Drew closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling slowly. "Okay," he said. "That's done." I stared at him. "You okay?" He nodded. "I think so. That needed to happen." I hesitated, then asked, "Did it change anything?" He looked at me then, something unreadable in his eyes. "No," he said. "If anything, it made things clearer." I wasn't sure what that meant, but I hoped it meant me. That night, we didn't talk much. We ate leftover pasta on the couch and watched some dumb action movie neither of us really paid attention to. He didn't sit close, but he didn't pull away either. Then around midnight, as I was brushing my teeth, I heard a soft knock on my door. I turned, toothbrush still in hand, and found Drew standing there. "Can I sleep in here tonight?" he asked. I swallowed. "Yeah, sure." He didn't say anything else. Just climbed into bed beside me like it was the most natural thing in the world. We lay there in silence for a few minutes, our backs to each other, both pretending to be asleep. Then I felt him shift. His arm slid around my waist. Lightly. Tentatively. I didn't move. Then I felt his breath near my ear. A whisper, barely audible. "I'm not scared anymore." I turned toward him, heart thudding. He kissed me, and this time, it wasn't hesitant. It was real. That kiss should have answered everything. But the truth is, it only opened up more questions. Don't get me wrong, it was good. Better than good. It was slow and warm and unhurried. The kind of kiss that felt like a sigh, after years of holding your breath. He kissed me like someone starving and scared to want too much at the same time. But after, he didn't say a word. He just held me. And for that night, that was enough. The next morning, I woke up before him. The early light was spilling across the bed, and he was curled against me, one arm slung over my waist like we'd done this 100 times. My first instinct was to stay exactly where I was. My second was to panic, because now it was real. I slid out of bed as quietly as I could and made my way to the kitchen, trying to breathe through the chaos in my head. What were we now? Were we together? Was it just a moment? Did he regret it? I was halfway through making coffee when he padded in, sleepy-eyed, wearing my hoodie like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Morning," he said, voice hoarse. "Hey." He leaned on the counter, watching me. "You okay?" I nodded, even though I wasn't sure. "Are you?" He looked down for a second, then met my eyes. "I'm not scared, but I am confused." I appreciated the honesty. Confused about what? About what happens now, about how fast this is moving, about what I want, and how much I want it. I poured us each a cup and handed him his. "We don't have to figure it all out right now." He gave me a soft smile. "That's good, because my head's a mess. We spent the weekend like that. Somewhere between friends and something more." He kept reaching for me. Touches on my back, brushing against me on the couch, knees bumping under the table. Little things. Things he probably didn't even realize he was doing. But he never said the word. Boyfriend. Partner. Us. And it started to wear on me. Sunday night, we went to a friend's barbecue. Just a small gathering. A few mutuals from college who'd ended up back in town like we had. I wasn't planning to say anything. I wasn't planning to out us or whatever we were, but when someone asked how long Drew was staying with me, and someone else joked about us being like an old married couple, I froze. Drew laughed it off. "Just temporary," he said quickly. "Figuring things out." I smiled, but it felt forced. Later, as we walked back to the car, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "So we're just temporary?" He stopped walking. "What?" "At the party, you made it sound like we're just roommates, like nothing's going on." "I didn't mean it like that." "But that's what you said." He rubbed the back of his neck. I don't know how to talk about it yet. About us." I folded my arms. "Do you even want there to be an us?" He looked at me, eyes wide. "Yes. God, yes. But I'm still figuring out who I am. I've lived my whole life one way. I had a fiance, Eli. A future planned. And now, everything's different. I just need time." I stared at him, my chest tight. "I've given you time, Drew. I've given you space. I've bent over backwards trying not to pressure you, but I can't be the only one holding this up." His expression shifted, hurt then guilt. "You're not. I swear you're not. I just don't want to lose you while I figure my shit out." "Then don't," I said quietly. "But I need to know this is going somewhere. I can't live in limbo." He stepped closer, taking my hand. "It is. It's going somewhere. I just can't promise I'll be perfect at it." I laughed a little. "I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for honest." "Then honestly," he said, squeezing my hand, "I've never wanted anyone the way I want you. And that scares the hell out of me." We didn't talk much the rest of the way home. But when we got inside, he pulled me into a hug and didn't let go. And that night, when we fell asleep in the same bed again, it felt a little more solid, still uncertain, still messy, but solid. Things got better. Not perfect, but better. Drew started to open up more. He didn't call us anything official, not yet, but he stopped dodging it. We went on actual dates. Coffee shops, a late-night bowling alley, that food truck event downtown where he got barbecue sauce on his chin and pretended he didn't notice just so I'd reach over and wipe it off. He started touching me in public. Not anything dramatic, just resting his hand on my back when we walked through a crowd or letting our shoulders brush when we sat side by side on a bench. But for someone who used to flinch at the idea of being seen as anything other than normal, it was huge. And then one night, we were lying in bed, clothes still on, legs tangled, just talking in the dark like we used to in college. And he said it. "I think I'm falling for you." It was so quiet, I almost thought I'd imagined it. But when I turned to face him, his eyes were wide open, searching mine like he was terrified of what he just said. "I think I already did," I replied. He smiled, pulled me in, kissed me like he finally understood something about himself he'd spent years trying not to look at. That night, we didn't sleep on opposite sides of the bed. We didn't sleep much at all, really. And for the first time since he moved in, I let myself believe this could actually be real. But then, as always, reality knocked. Literally. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was working from home, earphones in, when I heard the front door open and Drew say, "Mom?" I pulled my headset off and walked out of my room to find a middle-aged woman in a blazer standing stiffly in our living room. She had Drew's eyes and his exact same stunned expression. "Eli," Drew said, pale. "This is my mom. She wasn't supposed to come today." "Hi," I said, offering a nervous wave. "Nice to meet you." She didn't smile. "I was passing through town," she said flatly. "Wanted to surprise my son. Didn't realize I'd be walking into a surprise myself." The tension was immediate, suffocating. "I didn't know you two were roommates," she added, the word hanging like a weapon. Drew's jaw tightened. "We're more than roommates." Her face didn't change. I figured. She turned her gaze to me, not hateful, but cold, assessing. "How long?" Drew answered before I could. "A few months. But we've known each other a lot longer." There was a silence, long and painful. "I think I need some air," she said finally, heading for the door. Drew followed her outside. I stayed frozen on the couch, heart in my throat, staring at the front door like it might open any second and bring her back in, yelling, slamming, storming. But there was no yelling, just quiet voices, then footsteps. When Drew came back inside, he looked shell-shocked. "She didn't freak out," he said, dazed. "Not exactly." "What did she say?" He rubbed his face. "She said she wasn't surprised. That maybe deep down she always knew. But she still needed time." I nodded. "That's fair." She asked if this was just a phase. I told her it's not. My chest tightened. "And did you mean it?" He looked at me, eyes steady. "Yeah, I did." Later that night, we lay in bed, facing each other, both a little quieter than usual. "Sorry about all that," he said. "You don't have to be sorry." He reached over, brushing his fingers against my cheek. "I keep waiting for the part where I ruin this." "You haven't," I whispered. "Not yet." He laughed softly. "Not yet, huh?" I grinned. "I mean, you did leave your laundry in the washer for 3 days last week." He groaned. "Let it go, man." But the smile stayed on his face. That was the thing about us. No matter how complicated it got, it always came back to something simple. Being near each other made everything feel a little more okay. But I was starting to feel it too. The edge of something big coming. A shift. Because 2 days later, Drew got a call. A job offer. Not here, Chicago, where all of this started. And I had no idea what he was going to do. He didn't tell me right away. I only found out because I walked into the living room while he was on the phone. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. It just happened. He was pacing, barefoot, wearing one of my old t-shirts, voice low but excited. "No, it's a great offer. Full benefits, relocation covered." I didn't expect it, honestly. Yeah, I'd have to think about it, but it's tempting. He turned then and saw me. And the moment our eyes met, I knew. I waited until he hung up. He stood there, awkward, guilty like a kid caught stealing candy. "I was gonna tell you," he said quickly. "Job in Chicago?" He nodded. "Old coworker reached out, their firm's expanding, said they need someone who can hit the ground running. It's a good position, Eli, better than anything I've had before." I crossed my arms. And I didn't apply for it. I didn't go looking. It just came. "So did you say yes?" "No," he said immediately. "Not yet. But you're thinking about it." He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do, This could set me up for years. And what about us? I asked, heart thudding. Do we just get paused? Put on hold? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Silence settled between us. Heavy, real. I didn't ask for this, he said. Not angry, just tired. I didn't expect to fall for you. And I definitely didn't expect to have to choose between you and my career. That stung. Is that what this is? A choice? I don't know, he said, exasperated. I'm trying to figure that out. I took a breath. Then, figure it out. But do it fast. Because I won't be the guy you keep in the background while you decide if I'm worth staying for. His eyes widened, pain flashing across his face. You are. You're more than worth it. Then show me. I left the room before I could say anything else I'd regret. The next few days were rough. He was quiet, distant again. Not cold, just distracted, torn. He'd still touch me absent-mindedly, still kiss my cheek when I handed him his coffee. But there was a hesitance behind it now, a shadow, and I hated that I was waiting for a decision I had no control over. One night, I came home from work and found the apartment dark except for the flicker of the TV. He was on the couch, eyes unfocused, a job contract printed out and sitting on the coffee table. He looked up as I came in. I didn't sign it. I stood in the doorway, unsure what to say. I've been staring at it for 2 hours, he said. Every time I pick up the pen, I think about you. About how I'd wake up and you wouldn't be there. About what it would mean to go back to that city and be alone again. I walked over slowly, sat beside him. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. Then don't. He turned toward me. What if I stayed? What if I found something here? Something smaller, maybe less impressive, but ours? My chest tightened. You'd really do that? For the first time in my life, I want to choose the thing that makes me happy, not the thing that looks best on paper. I smiled, a little shaky. So what now? He reached for my hand, twining our fingers together. Now I call them back and say no. And then maybe I ask if you want to start looking for a place together, a real one, not just me crashing on your couch. I laughed, relief crashing over me like a wave. I'd like that. He pulled me into him, held me close, and for the first time in weeks, everything felt solid again. Not because it was perfect, but because we were choosing it. Together. We didn't move in together the next day. In fact, we stayed in my cramped little duplex for another 3 months. Drew still using the spare bedroom half the time, though we both knew it was mostly for show. His clothes slowly migrated into my drawers. His toothbrush found a home next to mine. My Spotify was now permanently tainted by his gym playlists. We were building a life, piece by piece. And yeah, it was weird sometimes. Like when I ran into one of Drew's old friends from high school who still thought he was engaged to Rachel, or when we had to figure out how to split groceries now that he was officially part of us. Or the first time I saw him get jealous because a guy the first used to date texted me out of nowhere and asked how I was doing. I'm fine, I told Drew later that night, after we both cooled off. But if you ever want to put a label on this, I wouldn't hate it. He smirked, pulled me close, and said, Boyfriend? Yeah, good, because I've been calling you that in my head for weeks. Turns out, building something real takes time. Drew started applying for local jobs. Nothing flashy, just honest work. Construction firms, city planning stuff. He landed something solid within a few weeks. Less money than Chicago, sure, but it was enough. And more importantly, he was happy. One night, while we were putting together a secondhand bookshelf from Craigslist, he paused, screwdriver in hand, and said, Do you ever think about how weird this is? How so? I was engaged to someone else. I had a whole other life planned, and now I'm here with you, trying to figure out which of these screws we just lost under the couch. I laughed. Yeah, life's weird like that. He looked at me for a long moment. I think I've never been more okay with being wrong about everything. We never had a dramatic coming out moment. His mom came around slowly, asked questions, made awkward but well-meaning attempts at understanding. My parents were surprisingly cool about it, in that Midwestern, "we're not going to say much, but we'll set a second plate for your friend at Thanksgiving" kind of way. Eventually, people stopped asking. It was just us. Eventually, we found a place. A small house with a creaky porch and terrible wallpaper in the guest bathroom. Drew insisted on painting it seafoam green. I hated it. We compromised with navy. We fought sometimes. About dishes. About who left the gas tank empty. About whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It is. He's wrong. But every night, we ended up in the same bed. And every morning, I woke up next to a guy who used to be my best friend, who became so much more. One Saturday, almost a year after he'd first knocked on my door with nothing but a duffel bag and a broken heart, we were lying on a blanket at the park. Sunlight in his hair, my head on his chest. He said, "You ever think we should have figured this out in college?" I shrugged. "Maybe, but I think we had to go through the mess to find the good." He smiled. "Yeah, the mess was worth it." And in that moment, with birds chirping, kids playing nearby, and the world feeling strangely okay for once, I realized something. This wasn't just a love story. It was a second chance. And we were finally getting it right.